Alright, what's up guys, it's KOSDFF here, and today I want to start off by apologizing. I know it's been a while since I did this style of video, and I had originally set out to do a whole bunch of these, and I was really excited on how well they were being received with all my little story videos and rants and all that other crap. And the reason is, we've been really busy over at Team Kaliber. We're going to be announcing 3 new esports teams over the weeks to come. So obviously that's taken a whole lot of my attentions away, and obviously I'm vlogging all the time now, and I've gotten really heavy into that, so that kind of eats away at my day. And sometimes at the end of the day, I just don't really feel like talking much, because I've spent the whole day fucking talking. But I'm always in a mood to go talk smack on Call of Duty, so that's usually what ends up happening if I don't make one of these videos earlier in the day. But no, today I wanted to tell you guys some of my adventures skipping school. Now, I don't know about you guys, but in high school, well, I skipped a fuck ton of school, and we even had like this really lenient truancy policy, and we kind of knew the tricks of the trade to kind of like get away with it. And really, honestly, a lot of my 11th grade year was just spent trying to outsmart the security guards so that we could skip school, either in the beginning of the day to skip the whole day, or would we leave halfway through, or we just missed last period. Like, it was a constant battle of trying to figure out a way to get out of fucking school. Now, all my friends that I would skip school with are just badasses. Me, I was just incredibly bored in school. School wasn't something very difficult for me. I found out very early on that I could do just about nothing and still maintain like a B- average. Now, all my other friends really struggled with school, and I felt kind of bad about that, but it also kind of gave me a license to just do whatever the hell I wanted in my mind. It's like, well, fuck, if I'm doing good in school, I don't gotta go to this class. I don't have to go to this period. I don't even have to go today because I know there's nothing due today, and when the fucking test comes around, I'll just study the night before and boom, A. And the only reason why I'm gonna end up with a B- is because of attendance. But just in general, we skipped a lot of school in high school. Now, I'm not trying to say this is something you guys should go do. I'm not trying to promote truancy. Obviously, here in America, we have public education, and it's something the rest of the world that doesn't have public education really wishes they had. And it's one of the most important things about being an American is having that public education system there, meaning that anybody can have a shot at anything in this country. A lot of our core values as a nation are built upon this structure of education. That's why we spend so much fucking tax money on it. But all that being said, we skipped a fuck ton of school. Now, just to kind of lay a little bit of a background so you kind of know the attitude towards this school. The school I went to was a brand new school. When I attended it, we were the first people to attend it. I was the first 10th grade class in that new high school. And for the first year, they kind of just took kids that lived near the school and took a certain percentage of the 2 surrounding high schools and stuck them all in there. And it was actually a pretty cool place because it was brand new. All the teachers were really excited to be there because they had all new shit. All the kids were pretty excited because if they weren't entering high school, which was kind of exciting as it is, they were moving from a school they didn't really like. The only people that really didn't like the school were the seniors because they were really connected with their high schools and probably didn't like having to go to a brand new one. And the main reason being, there is just absolutely no school spirit when a school first starts because you have no identity. You've done nothing cool. You have no relationships with the teachers, the staff. It's just a building full of fucking kids. But the school did a pretty good job. You know, we had a football team. They had a really good sports athlete program. They did plenty of after school stuff. And it was actually growing into like a really good school, a really good community. But in North Carolina, they have a busing law, meaning you can have your kid go to any school you want and the state will actually pay a bus to go get you and bring you there. Now, if you guys didn't know, busing actually makes up the majority of an education budget. Now, I could be wrong. This could have changed in the last 10 years since I've heard this statistic, but I'm pretty damn sure that they spend almost 71%, maybe 75% of their budget on busing alone, just getting kids to and from school. And obviously this amount can grow pretty massive if you're busing kids from all over the city, regardless of where they live, instead of keeping it local. Now, this is the South, so there's a reason why these busing laws exist. Back in the day, they would, segregate people on where they live economically, or just, and they would treat one school better than the other because of race or color or anything like that. So they created these busing laws saying, hey, you guys can go to any school you guys want. That we're going to allow parents to choose the school they want their kid to go to, and we'll somehow figure out a way to bus them to the school. Which, to be honest, sounds fucking awesome. If I'm a parent, I want my kid to go to the best school. Well, so does everybody else. So only a certain percentage of a certain amount of schools are allowed to come to this new school, but of course, the largest part of that percentage made up from other schools that were kind of underprivileged or really overpopulated. And of course, all their parents want their kids to come to the brand new school. So the very next year, kids from all over the city came into the school, and what went from like a small neighborhood community became the whole entire city. And of course, with all that stuff came all the crime and all the cops and all the shitty teachers and all the horrible things that can happen in an education system, especially as one as large as CMS or Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system. So the next year, the school really changed. It used to be this really laid-back place where kids kind of really connected with the school and had a lot more freedom and relationships with the teachers and things like that. So now it's a completely overpopulated, just fucking concrete box. And of course, they've stationed like 7 cops there, so all the stuff we used to get away with in 10th grade, we weren't getting away with now. And they hit my group hard because my group was idiots. We're the ones who skipped school, who always wanted to go out in the school parking lot to hang out at lunch. And some of those guys never ever attended a full day of of school. Now I wanted to explain our attendance policy. You had 10 excused absences per class, meaning you could miss every class like 10 times before you would get a grade reduction or have to do this thing called recovery, which I'll get to later. And overall, we had like 12 subjects, so I think we had 2 in the morning, like 2 near lunch, and then 2 in the afternoon. And of course, we had an A and a B day equaling 12 classes total. And each one of them had their own individual 10 absences. So if you times that out and really add it up, you have like 120 classes that you can miss. So it's 120 options to go leave school and go do something else. And well, we took full advantage of that. Now you would think 120 excused absences would be enough, but really you never just missed one class because you couldn't just leave for one class because you had to come back or leave within like the class changes or you'd get fucking caught. So most of the time, we'd either miss the first half of school and go in late, or we'd skip the second half of school, or we'd just skip the last 2 periods. So all of this combined, we did a fair amount of skipping. Now in 10th grade, I'm not really going to tell you about it because that shit was easy. We would just walk. We would just leave. Nothing stopped us. No one was watching the cameras. There were no cops. There were no cops patrolling the area around the school. So once we were out there, we were free to walk like the mile back to our houses. And all of our parents worked during the day, so we'd pretty much just go back there. Now we hardly ever went back to my house because my house was the furthest away, but safe to say we didn't really ever have a shortage of places to go, save a few times that I'm about to tell you about. Now right around 11th grade is when everyone started getting cars and parking passes, so a lot of the times we would we'd just skip out to the car and then leave, or at least we thought. They started actually catching on and started seeing kids leaving school that would just come to the school parking lot and then leave, and they started pulling us over. And then the few times we got caught leaving like right in the morning, like soon as we got there, we'd make up excuses like we were going to get breakfast and stuff, and they'd just send us on back. It was no big deal. But a good amount of the times we had cars, so once you got to the car, you were kind of home free because you could just drive out of the school parking lot. I mean, those cops aren't just going to jump in front of your car or nothing like that. And a couple of times we actually had to drive while they were like chasing behind us because as soon as you got to your car, you were home free. But you still had to get from the building to your actual car, and well, during the day, there's just no reason for you to go out to your car because they strictly forbid it. Eventually, believe it or not, they made it where you had to have a police escort to leave your classroom besides the designated times being the class changes when everyone was moving around. So you really stood out on camera if you were trying to get out of there. So most of the times during the class change, we'd just run out to the car, knowing full well that they saw us on camera and would actually chase after us, and every single time they fucking did. But my high school was so goddamn big that there was just no way they could identify you unless they like were right there standing there talking to you. So if you ran away and you maintained a good amount of distance from them, there's no way they could identify you and you would just remain anonymous. And let's face it, all the people we were skipping school with and hopping into their cars, they didn't have parking passes. They were just parking there and stealing people's spots. So they didn't even have a record of whose student's car that was, so we got away with that almost every single time. Now when we had a car in skipping school was really fun and really didn't end up in anything besides us going to someone's house and watching TV or just hanging out, which funny enough, most of the time we'd end up just sitting there waiting for all of our friends that didn't skip school to get out of school so we could all go hang out somewhere. All in all, it usually ended up pretty boring. Let's be honest, when you skip school, it's fun skipping school, but once you're out of school, you're just fucking bored. Arguably more bored than you would have been in school, but no, eventually the school got wise and eventually they put up this like fucking arm that made it where you couldn't leave the school campus. But I had a Ford Explorer, so that shit was no fucking problem. I would just hop the curb near the lunch bay and just drive on out. Now they never caught me doing that too, because believe it or not, the spot we would jump over the curb didn't get caught on cameras. So my car would just be there one minute and the next it wasn't. And I never had a parking pass. I would just kind of like borrow spots from people who didn't drive that day, because not everyone drove every single day. Or I'd park in the teacher's parking lot just cause badass, or I would park somewhere else. Like I hid my car in so many different places. Now I tried to get a parking pass. It wasn't like I couldn't buy one or just my parents wouldn't get me one or I wasn't allowed. I didn't have the attendance record to get a parking pass. You had to miss only a certain amount of days before they'd figure that out. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you're wondering why they never called my parents, because obviously they're school, they have my parents' phone numbers. If you're wondering why they never really caught us doing that, both my parents work, so they seldomly answered their phone. Most of the time they would just like answer back a voicemail, but we also figured out that if you made it to homeroom, which was after the first 2 periods, you could skip the rest of the day of school and they would never know. The front office only figured out who was in school that day in homeroom. So most of the time we'd always go to our first 2 classes and just leave after that. So it's safe to say I did really well in 4 subjects. But the rest of them bitches I like hardly showed up to. A couple of those classes I would skip and just stay in school and just go to the other lunches. Like I just really didn't like school. There was a few classes that I enjoyed, but for the most part I was bored as shit like halfway through 11th grade. I was over it. I was ready to go to college. Now you've heard me talk a couple times about me skipping school in cars, which we didn't always have. I didn't always have my car with me. Sometimes I didn't have it. So I wasn't always able to drive. Once my parents found out I didn't have a parking pass and I got my car towed a couple times, they were done with it. I wasn't allowed to drive to school anymore. So so a lot of the times in 11th grade, especially towards the end of 11th grade, we'd have to depend on other people's cars to get us out of there. And well, sometimes we didn't have one and still wanted to skip school. And we'd have to do the same thing as when we have a car, so we just have to run out there knowing full well that they're gonna chase us, and we'd have to run through the parking lot, jump the fence, and run through this field, and eventually like duck into cover out in the woods. And thinking back on that, it's almost kind of funny because we always thought the school was like a prison because there was so many cops and it just looked like a prison, and here we are just like running, escaping from jail. And this almost always ended up as a mistake because we were just really bored, and our houses were like 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. And walking that distance in the heat of summer or like in the cold of winter and just kind of like doing all that shit to get back to the house was just usually pretty shit. And then sometimes we couldn't go to some people's houses and we just had to like hang around the outside of the school out in the fucking woods. And I remember this one time we actually tried to skip school in the very beginning. So me and Johnny actually rode the yellow school bus to school, and they monitored this shit really well. So what we had to do is like when we got off the bus, we had to run to the back of the bus and then just like beeline it to the wood line. And we had done this a couple times because on the other side of that tree line, I call it a wood line, I meant a tree line. On the other side of that was this development being constructed, like a whole bunch of houses and shit like that. And the last time we tried to do this, we actually ran, almost jumped through the trees. That's what we always did. But at the very last fucking second, we realized there was a damn fence there, and Johnny actually ran right in the back of me and we slammed right into it because I was the guy in front and I noticed it, but I don't think he did. But we were in a total panic because we are totally out in the open. We've definitely been seen by security. They're definitely going to come after us. So as soon as we hit that damn fence, we just start running towards the road to get around it. So we're running through this parking lot. Everyone's seeing us. You know, the cops are running after us. Everyone's cheering and yelling like, oh, they're skipping, they're skipping. And at this point, you can't turn around because then you're going to get caught. Everyone knows what you were doing, and it was either get suspended or get away. So we turned the corner to run along kind of like the main street that feeds into the school. So we're running in front of like this line of cars, like everybody dropping all their kids off at school. All of our friends that are driving to school see us just fucking booking it in front of these security guards. And the side of this road ended up getting really steep to the point of where I was kind of like running on top of Johnny, like my knees were parallel with his head, and one of the security guards came out of nowhere and like tried to grab me. And at this point I tried to jump over Johnny and failed, completely tackled over him. We both fell all the way down the hill and landed kind of like in the ditch right next to the road. Now the security guards saw this happen and decided not to follow suit, so they kind of went back down to like walk straight down so they could kind of control how fast they were moving down this really steep embankment. But we're like 16-year-old kids, so we just got right back up and to continue to just run down the side of the street and eventually dipped into the housing development. Now this day completely fucking sucked because one, we didn't get to do anything, and we ran from the security guards the whole fucking time because they literally like blocked off the exit to this housing development and went house by house looking for us, and every single time they would move a house, we would have to move one to make sure that we stayed as far away from them as possible. And those fuckers didn't give up. At one point we thought they fucked off, and then right when we were about to like leave the house so we could start walking back towards our homes, security guard popped around the corner in his lame little car and blue light our shit, so we'd have to run and ditch him again. Once it got around to like 1:30, I think we had like 45 minutes until school ended and the buses were there, which is how both of us got there. He decided to fuck off and just make a beeline and just run for it to run home. And at this point I'm like, okay, wait a minute, it's like 45 minutes till school ends and you're wanting to walk for like an hour and a half like through all the fucking shit to get back to our houses, because you couldn't just walk alongside of the roads anymore. That's why even though we only lived like 2 miles away, it took a really long time to get home because you couldn't just use the roads because the cops would see you. And it's pretty fucking obvious when you're walking down the side of the street like 16-year-old kid in the middle of a school day wearing a backpack, like everyone knows you're skipping school. Like I said, they pour a lot of money into that busing program, or you have a ride to school, so it's like there's no reason to walk that long, especially along these long roads where they have like no houses on them. So his dumb ass decided to like walk all the way home, and I was like, fuck that, I'm breaking back into this school. I'm fucking prison breaking this shit. I'm gonna break in, not get caught, and get on the bus like nothing happened. And believe it or not, that's exactly what I did. I went right back to that fence and just kind of like waited till like the bus was like halfway full and like the whole place was just swarmed with people. Jumped that fence, went and ran, got into the line for the bus, got on, and it was like never got caught. And that was probably the closest we ever got to actually getting caught like off a school campus, because of course we got caught like a million freaking times like leaving the school. Like we didn't always get away with it. A lot of times we wouldn't even get close. Like we'd just be hanging out near the door like plotting our fucking escape, and the security guard would come up and tap us on the shoulder and be like, nah, don't even fucking think about it. Get to fucking class. I'm watching you. And like, god damn it, he would just follow us everywhere. Now, eventually my skipping did come to an end because all my friends, believe it or not, ended up dropping out of high school. When you hit 16, you're like legally allowed to choose for yourself to drop out of high school and go get your GED. And one day they all decided to skip school, that I decided to stay because right around like the end of 11th grade, start of 12th grade, I got a girlfriend, so I actually kind of wanted to stay in school to spend time with her because we had a lot of the same classes, etc. So right there at the end, they ended up skipping school a few extra times times than me, and then got caught one time, and they actually got pulled into the principal's office like, hey, we know you guys are doing this. You've missed like 30 days of school. We're gonna have to call the cops so I can get the police involved because your parents are gonna get in trouble for all this shit. So of course, in the face of all that, or just dropping out and getting your GED, of course all those kids said, fuck that, it's all getting a whole bunch of trouble, or go on permanent vacation and just go work. So like all of them all together left school one day. So I was like friendless for most of 12th grade. All the people I hung out with outside of school were either not in school or went to another school or were older. So I spent like the entire 12th grade just with my girlfriend. And obviously I cleaned up my act at that point because there was just no point to skip school because I had no one to skip school with. Like the few times that we did skip school, I skipped school with her, and we didn't really like do anything crazy like run or jump. We would just walk to each other's houses because we lived so close together, and we would just chill. Actually, one time we hid in the back of my parents' Suburban, which was kind of funny because they like walked right by us a few times when they were like leaving for work because they had 2 other cars. But overall, my troublemaking days kind of ended there. Now, I'm not saying I turned into a perfect angel, but as soon as all my friends dropped out, and obviously the police presence at the school amped up because there was more and more violence and more robberies and more gang shit happening at the school, I all of a sudden was small potatoes. Like the few times that I did skip school, I would just walk out to my car and just drive out because they would only lock that gate in between class changes and stuff like that because obviously they have to have the fire department have access to the car parking lot like all day. It's like a security risk if they just left it on. So they would open it back up like once school was in session. So me being alone and it just being me and knowing that like all the school security like didn't care about me anymore because they had bigger fish to fry and all my troublemaker friends weren't there anymore, I would just like walk out to my car casually, wait for class to start, and just drive out in front of all the cameras. And I had a parking pass at this point, and like they just never busted me for anything after that. I literally felt like I could get away with anything, and well, I wasn't really doing anything that terrible, so I did. Now, there was a point in 12th grade where me and my girlfriend broke up, which largely left me kind of alone at the school because I didn't really make new friends because I had all these other friends like I was hanging out with outside of school. And really, when you're in class, you're just hanging out with the people in your classroom and stuff like that. So a lot of times I would go eat lunch out in my car in the car parking lot because I had a PS2 in my car, and obviously I could use my phone because you weren't allowed to use phones in school, but I left my phone in my car. So pretty much every day I would go through the cafeteria, get my food, just walk right out of the cafeteria with my tray, walk straight to my car and eat lunch in my car. And I swear to God, they had to have seen me do it every single time, and they just never cared. They had gang members and people beating up teachers to worry about. My scrawny ass was just of no concern. Alright, right about now, you're probably wondering how I didn't fail all these classes because obviously I missed way more than their allotted 10 absences. They had this thing called recovery in my school, meaning you could go make up like all the time you were supposed to be in class, which is like an hour per class. You could make that up at the end of the school day with the teacher, and at the end of the day, you would just go hang out in that classroom for an hour and do whatever the hell you wanted most of the time. Sometimes they were assholes and would give you like these worksheets and busy work shit to do, but most of the time you would just end up going and sitting there like an hour at the end of every single day for the last like 3 or 4 weeks of school to make up all your recovery days. And I was one of those kids, although I skipped school a lot, I did care about my grades. I did want to get into a good college. More importantly, I didn't want my fucking parents to find out because if they found out I was doing bad in school, that's when I would get in a shit ton of trouble. My mom yells and is scary little Asian woman. But more times than not, I would actually show up to recovery and I would do the first few days, which is like an hour and a half at the end of school every single day that the teacher's got to sit there and basically chill with you. But eventually they'd always ask me, you know, you have an enormous amount of recovery days to make up. Are you actually going to come to all of them? And I would show up diligently for the first week. Sometimes it was 2 weeks, but they'd always sit there like look at me in the eye and I'd be like, yes, like I have a great grade in your class. There's no way I'm going to fail this class because I didn't show up to it. Most of the time I'd have like a B+ average on all the tests and all the quizzes, but I would have missed like certain pop quizzes, and I would always have like a 20% grade reduction because of attendance, because that's how much it always ended up being worth. And I would sit there and tell them, yes, I will be here every single day. There's no way I'm not getting this B+ in this class. So they'd sit there and make me the deal, be like, all right, well, you take a B and then you don't have to show up anymore. Like, I know you're going to sit here and do this. I don't want to come here every day. I know you don't want to be here every day. And I'm like, yes, I will take that deal. And that would actually happen most of the time. And if they didn't alter my grade, they would usually just give me my grade and just say, okay, fuck it. There's just no way I'm showing up here and spending an hour and a half here every single day with you for the next 3 weeks. And I wasn't like I was a dick while I was there. I was friendly. I'd make jokes, or if they were that kind of teacher, I'd sit there and do nothing. Most of the time I slept. Now, obviously, I don't want to promote skipping school with this video. You guys all know I highly value education, and I believe getting a college education and finishing high school at least are two of the most important things you'll ever do in this world, and it's something that I highly encourage everyone to do. Whether you have to take out school loans or grind out essays to get grants or just, you know, borrow money from all your parents and family members to go, it's something I really think all of you guys should do. That being said, everyone knows high school is a fucking joke and easy as shit, and obviously everyone skips that shit. But don't think I made this video to throw shade on people who don't skip school, or, you know, obviously the school system and stuff like that, it's extremely important. Now, I didn't enjoy high school so much, but I really enjoyed college, so much so that when I finished it, I went back to school and got a law degree. So imagine finishing college, which took me 5 years, and going, hey, you know, I want 3 more years of this shit. That's how much I loved school. And just like I said, high school was easy as shit and wasn't fucking anything compared to college. Law school was the same thing. College was a fucking joke compared to that shit. So it gets harder and harder and harder, but just like your favorite video game, it's only fun if it's a challenge. And eventually, if you give it a chance, you might actually start to really like school like I did. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys tomorrow.